Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. You know, there are many members of the conservative family, and the list is very long. You have people like Keith Abloh, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Carol Swain, Ted Nugent, Laura Ingraham, and Bill Bennett, just to name a few of them. Now, we here Surrounded by Idiots, we have a short list of people that we have wanted to talk to speak to give us some type of hope and to tell us how to proceed against this current fury of leftist progressive people that are trying to destroy what this country is about. Now, happily, one of those voices is with us tonight. Her name is Dr. Carol M. Swain. She is a professor at Vanderbilt University and is a frequent guest on many shows, and we are honored to have her with us tonight. Dr. Swain, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, and it's a privilege to be on your show.
Oh, thank you very much. I saw your credits, and you've been on the BBC and CNN and Fox and everything, and I am always very pleased to have a very intelligent person coming on our little podunk show that makes it onto YouTube once in a while. I have some questions for you, Doctor. Are people actually waking up? Are we seeing some progress getting our country back to its original values? I'm seeing in these elections that there may be some cause for hope. How do you see it?
If we look at what's happening in the individual states like Tennessee, and there are other states across the country where you see conservative legislators being elected, they're going into the state government and passing laws that do impact people's lives in a positive manner. But when it comes to the national government, because the executive branch is so powerful and the president has been able to infiltrate every institution with his own people, with people that share his values, it's a much more difficult battle. It's harder even for conservative members of the Congress to know how to fight back.
You mentioned the president. I am deeply disturbed by the power grabbing. Is there any way to control this? You're the college professor and you know about this type of thing. Is there any way to control the apparently out of control imbalance of power that we're seeing right now?
Well, I mean, the Congress has the ability to even overturn some of the executive orders, but it's much more difficult when Harry Reid is in control of the Senate, and he is in a position to block legislation. And the Democrats control the Senate, so it's much harder for anything to take place that would actually block some of the power grabs of the president. And we do know that he's using signing statements and executive orders to really legislate from the White House.
So we have, essentially what you're saying is we have to wait for the election to really make any progress on this.
Well, I mean, one thing that we can do, and we are doing, is watching the Obama administration like hawks. And so even though it may take a few days, there's very little, I believe, that slips by for long. It's difficult to get the mainstream media to get excited about the loss of our civil liberties. And there, it's very unfortunate that there's information that we need that doesn't get reported because so many of the mainstream media have their own agenda. And if it doesn't advance that agenda, then it's not going to get the coverage that it needs to inform the people.
Doctor, a lot of people are going to be listening to this interview and seeing this interview because it's going to be up on YouTube, and I'm going to release it under the Creative Commons licensing so people can broadcast it any way they see fit. Where are good places for people to go to get good, honest news that when they tell people, I saw this, I read this, they won't be labeled a conspiracy nut for saying it? Where can they go?
Well, I mean, I'm going to point them in the direction of some conservative news sources, and I will say that it's always important to try to get the information from more than one place and to verify it. And if there's something that deals with legislation or executive order, then you should be able to go online and look that up and go to the Federal Register or some official site and be able to verify whether certain things took place. I like The Blaze, which is a online magazine that's associated with Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm.
It reports lots of news, easily verifiable. They have a great reputation, but it's news you're not going to find on other news sources. Sometimes, though, the Blaze will publish something that other news sources will pick up and will give them credit. I like to read the Washington Times. They are one of the most conservative newspapers in the country. And then just to be aware of what's taking place from the liberal perspective and how they're spinning things, I always go to the Washington Post. I skim those headlines, New York Times, and I always check the Drudge site because there's information there, often on Drudge, that you're not going to find anyplace else.
Yes, we actually at Selene ETV, where the show is based, we pick up the Blaze RSS feed for our readers to peruse through and to discuss. And
Fox News, they get a bad rap. Mm-hmm. People say that they are faux news, they make up the news. One thing for sure is that in this media battle where everyone is moving towards the left, Fox News does cover a lot of issues that many of us care about. And so that network will report news that you're not going to find on CNN, you're not going to find on MSNBC or any of the more left-leaning news outlets.
Yes. What's the biggest issue that you come up against in your work to educate people?
That's, I guess, just the battle always for media coverage. I would prefer it to be heard on networks other than just the conservative ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that liberals are not tolerant at all. They don't want to hear any divergent opinions. If you're politically correct or if you're willing to be the conservative fool on their network, to be the foil, for the commentator, then they might let you on. But if you have the potential to make arguments that could be persuasive on a liberal channel, then your opportunities for appearing will be limited.
So if you talk about God or Christ or anything else to do with our divine destiny here in this country, they just don't want to hear it, do they?
But even beyond that, if you talk about the issues, like if you were to make a conservative case against for enforcing immigration laws, mm-hmm. That's not politically correct. That's not going to be well received. And there are a number of things that are taking place that are just not getting attention, yet they're legitimate issues that Americans need to know about. And so we do have a void of information that makes it difficult for voters to hold their politicians accountable and to make intelligent decisions. But one of the things that people can do, and I believe that there's enough information for them, to be able to do this, is to first of all read the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and know what the framers had in mind for this country and compare that against what you see taking place around you. And most people, after they do that, they do become upset. And if you take the time to go further and read George Orwell's 1984, the book titled 1984, which was a fictional account of a totalitarian society, you look at America today, and we have become a very Orwellian society. The America today is not the America that I grew up in as a child. It's not even the America that I lived in 10 years ago. This is a new country. President Obama delivered on the change he promised, and that change is fundamentally changing America as we know it.
Yes, us conservatives out here in in the Midwest, we very nearly on a daily basis weep for what is happening in Washington, and we're just I'm almost afraid that the shining city on the hill is starting to go dark.
Well, you know something? I believe that biblically that we get the government we deserve, and under our Constitution, and I talk about this in my book, Be the People, Called to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise. Under our Constitution, it's we the people. We the people elect the politicians. They enact the programs and policies on our behalf. If we don't like what we see out there, then we have to blame ourselves, because ultimately we are responsible. And I believe that if the God of the Judeo-Christian Bible, if he changes not, as he says in his words, then he will hold us accountable for the kind of nation that we have allowed ourselves to become. And so we all share in the guilt of what this nation has become.
Can we turn it around?
I believe we can.
How many, I have heard Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh both say that this election is only the start of turning it around. How many election cycles do you think that we are going to have, the majority of Americans are going to have to work hard to turn this around? How many election cycles do you think it will take?
Well, it might just take the right person. I'm not sure. I would love to be enthusiastic about Mitt Romney and say, oh, you know, he's our solution. I have concerns that many of his policy positions have not been that far from Barack Obama's. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure he is the person, but at least if he's elected, he probably will not take us further over the cliff. Whether or not he will be able to reverse course enough that we would be able to see fundamental changes, I don't know. He's not saying the kind of things that I want to hear to reassure me.
Yes, I don't see it either, but honestly, I don't see any other choice.
But that's how the conservatives always get us into a situation where we are forced to vote for the lesser of two evils. And so we will, go to the polls, some of us, and we will vote. But at the end of the day, I wish I had enthusiasm. I wish I had some confidence that Mitt Romney would spend his first 20 days writing new executive orders to reverse the Obama executive orders. I wish I had confidence that he would clean out the branches of government, rescind some of those new regulations that are being imposed on businesses. I'm not confident that he will do those things. I'm not confident that he will restore our civil liberties and our civil rights.
Yes, I have to agree with that 100%. From a Christian perspective, do you believe that we are approaching the point where God is going to rain his wrath down upon us?
I think we're already experiencing it in a way. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 28, and if your listeners take the time to read Deuteronomy chapter 28, the first part of the chapter starts off with the blessings of obedience, and the chapter is talking to the nation of Israel. And so God promises a prosperity and for obedience, but if you continue reading that chapter, there's a number of curses for disobedience. The Bible says the stranger among you, which is another way of saying the alien, will become the head and you'll become the tail. He will lend to you and you'll borrow from him. And if you look at how much of American soil is owned by foreigners, sometimes people are not even living in this country, mm-hmm. You see the debt that we owe China. I mean, our prosperity, we've given it away. And since the Obama administration has been in control through treaties and international agreements, he has relinquished this enormous power that has weakened America's sovereignty as a nation. And I believe that we are approaching the point where this nation will face the full wrath of God. I don't believe we're in a situation of judgment yet. God always sends his prophets, and I think there are many prophets now that are warning us. But if you look at us, our nation, we have copied the worst of other nations, and we've even gone further because we export our decadent behavior as a condition to get the foreign money that we've borrowed from China. Other nations are being forced to adopt practices that run contrary to their moral values. And I believe that we will be held accountable for that. Nations like Brazil, where they value the sanctity of human life, is a Catholic nation. That's one of the nations where the U.S. would try to impose abortion on them. They are trying to impose homosexuality as normal, not just in this nation, but also in other nations as a condition of getting foreign aid. And this goes beyond just tolerance and non-discrimination. This is about fostering a particular lifestyle, teaching it to children as if it were normal, and ignoring the fact that if 96% of the population is heterosexual and only 3% is homosexual, then that's deviant by definition. It's a deviance from the norm. But our government has an agenda. It doesn't just affect this nation. It affects other nations of the world. A lot of those nations are poorer. I believe that God will hold us accountable.
Boy, that's bad news for the nation, but us Christians, we live our lives as righteously as we can, so hopefully we will still be saved. From a college professor's point of view, can you explain to the listeners the difference between divine providence and manifest destiny? And I believe this is important because we were founded under divine providence, and long about Andrew Jackson, we switched over to manifest destiny, and I think that's when it all started to fall apart. So what is the difference between the two of those?
Well, divine providence, as I understand it, is just the belief that God is in control of the world's affairs. And there are many people that believe that America as a nation was formed by people who came here to practice that Christian faith. And many of the Puritans and the Pilgrims, they sought to enter into a covenant with the God of Israel. And so as part of that covenant relationship, many of them made vows and sought to, create a more righteous nation. I think and we deviated from that. I mean, we made our vows, we made our covenants, but we were clearly founded as a nation that was Christian. And so that was not being contested. And when you look at the First Amendment, that had to do with keeping one Christian denomination from dominating others. The desire was to prevent their becoming a national church. There were some states that had state churches. When you look at manifest destiny, that has to do with this belief that the U.S. was supposed to extend its borders, and it has to do with a lot of the excursions in other nations that had led to conquest. It led us to situations where we took on responsibilities that I don't believe we were asked to take on. And eventually, it ended up with a position where the U.S. has sort of seen themselves or been positioned as a policeman of the world, and that's not how we started off.
No, it isn't. I have been doing a lot of research into this, and I'm going to be, I think I'm going to do an entire series of shows on the difference between divine providence and manifest destiny, and I'm going to use your book that I was talking about during the first part of the show, Be the People, and it is, I have to say, it is an excellent book that it's short and it's sweet and it gets right to the point. I understand you have a foundation also that's called We the People. Well,
it's a nonprofit that I set up to advance conservative values and principles, and it is named the Be the People Project. And I'm also in the process of trying to pull together the resources for a new television show that would deal with political, social, and cultural issues from a conservative perspective, because I feel that with a lot of the shows that exist now, not the conservative radio shows, but a lot of the television shows, that they are under pressure to include more and more liberal voices, so that the liberals tend to dominate sometimes even on conservative shows. And I'd like to see a show that dealt with the issues that conservative Judeo-Christians need to hear, and it would not be dominated by voices that were liberal. It would hear the liberal side, but it would not allow that side to dominate. And I think that right now, if we're going to win the cultural war in America that we seem to be losing, then we have to gain control over all the airwaves, not just the radio, but also television, newspapers. We have to do things differently.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that, that when I get all of these things rolling, that with the nonprofit, I would be able to have forums and conferences and have literature produced that would help educate people about conservative values and principles and why these are important. And with the television show, I would hope to be on secular television and be able to advance in my role as the anchor Judeo-Christian values and principles and how these apply to the issues of our day.
How far along is the production on it?
Well, we're actually planning to shoot the pilots this summer.
Oh, excellent.
And so it's moving right along. It's just a matter of whether or not I'll be able to afford the airtime to get it off the ground.
Are you going to be releasing the pilot online at all?
Well, I hope to, after the show airs, to post them on the website.
Okay.
But all of that is being worked out, and the plan is to shoot the pilots next summer and probably air in the Nashville area to start and then try to expand into syndication. So that's my goal, to be syndicated across the country, to own my show rather than have a network own it. Because if a network owns the show, then they can control the creative content, and it makes it much more difficult for you to be free enough to talk about the issues that matter.
Yes, folks, if you believe in what Dr. Swain is trying to do and what she's what her plan is, get over to her website. It is carolmswain.net, and the link for her her foundation, her nonprofit, is the Be the People project, and you need to get over there. You need to give her some money so that she can get this project underway, because I think, as a country, we desperately need more voices like this. Dr. Swain, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. We are at the end of the interview, I believe. You have graciously agreed to come on for half an hour, and the half an hour is up, and I don't want to keep you any longer than necessary.
That's fine, but I would like to tell your listeners that the Be the People show that I'm launching will be for profit, and so I would be looking for investors and hopefully, be able to have a show that would be successful enough that would generate the revenue for a good return. Yes,
you might, as just a wild suggestion, you might want to get a hold of GBTV, Glenn Beck's network. It's an online network. I know. I've tried to reach him. I've not had a lot of success, even though I've been on there a couple of times. He's a busy man. Very busy. I'd love to get him on the show for a half an hour, because, boy, we'd both be crying at the end of it. I can tell you that right now. I know. But we keep trying, and sooner or later, who knows? Yes, I certainly, I am going to pray for you on a daily basis, ma'am. Well, thank you. God bless. Yes. With God's help, and we have to get this country back to Divine Providence somehow. Anyways, Dr. Swain, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you. My pleasure. Yes. Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Dr. Carol M. Swain. She is a professor at Vanderbilt University. Her webpage is, of course, right here. And she has her nonprofit, Be the People Project. It is carolmswain.net. I repeat, carolmswain.net. So that is it for tonight's show. I appreciate everybody tuning in and showing up. And as I said before, this show is going to be on YouTube in its entirety, even the first part of it. We are going to release this under the Creative Commons Attribute Only license. So if you'd like to post this, if you would like to use this interview in any way, shape, or form, if you'd like the MP3, go to SeleneETV.com and click on the Contact Us button, and we will send you the MP3. Attribution, you must attribute SeleneETV.com. And if you believe in the stuff that we're talking about here on this show, that we have to get this country back to divine providence rather than the manifest destiny bastardization of what this country is, then you need to come over to Selene ETV and you need to join us. We are a community-driven website. We have all sorts of discussion, everything. We're essentially Facebook for Christians and people that believe in this country. We welcome all people. Anyways, that is it for tonight's show. I appreciate everybody showing up. We should be broadcasting live from northern Michigan on Friday night or Saturday night, hopefully. There will be more information about that in the near future, probably tomorrow morning or so, because I am going wheels up tomorrow afternoon and heading to northern Michigan. So until the next time we get together, my name is Bill Zam, and as always, drive carefully out there, because when a car hits a car, that's an accident. When a car hits a child, that is a tragedy. For those of you that are watching online, I'm going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back with a shorter of a little bit of a better preamble for the video that we're going to put up on YouTube. Hold on one second. I will be right back on the video side.